Good evening, guys. Welcome back to your channel Ansarkari. So let's start with our today's discussion from the Hindu newspaper for 6th of December. So the first news piece is talking about the Supreme Court says that we definitely have the fundamental right of freedom of religion as given by Article 25 to 28 under Part 3 of the Constitution, but nobody has the right, or it does not mean that you have the right to deceitful conversions or converting people into other religions by force. So that is not a part of your fundamental right, although you have the freedom of religion given the reasonable restrictions which are applicable and which can be imposed. So it says basically the Supreme Court's point of view is that definitely you can go ahead when it comes to charity and you're saying that you want to get people converted and you are doing it from the perspective of spreading more prosperity. So if you want to do more prosperity, you can go ahead by doing charity, and but the purpose of charity should not be conversion. So that is one thing, and you can find out more about Article 25 to 28. Then we ink a migration agreement with Germany. So India and Germany, they've agreed to sign a migration agreement, which is definitely going to help people when it comes to the east to travel to each other and study there and work there. You can do more research. So that is one benefit out of this agreement that is going to be there. And also, India also said that when it comes to India's consumption of the Russian oil, it is just one-sixth of the European consumption, and it should not be compared unfavorably because India is still importing crude oil from Russia, and given the Russia-Ukraine war, a price cap has been imposed on the Russian oil. So this statement comes in the backdrop of this scenario. So talking about the assistance or the relationship between India and Germany, you need to find out the details by Googling on this topic. But the important things that are given in this article when it comes to the India-Germany relationship is that we are working more upon when it comes to the renewable energy sector and energy transitions. So the role is going to be more significant when it comes to this. And also we are working on international issues such as Indo-Pacific strategy. And we also had discussion about China, Afghanistan, and Pakistan when we talk about countering the terrorism activities. Then spurious liquor and drugs, the instances and the illegal trade, it has been seen that it is increasing in the state of Punjab, and this has been emphasized by the Supreme Court itself. So we need to tackle this thing because obviously this is going to impact our youth, and we need to ensure that their lives are not destroyed because of this. So we see that the consumption of drugs is increasing, and we have also seen that the drone technology is also being used when it comes to transporting drugs across the border, especially when we talk about the India-Pakistan border. So that is one of the concerns when we talk about the state of Punjab. Moving ahead, as I just told you, a drone carrying heroin was recovered in the state of Punjab. So technology has both positives and negatives. So yesterday we talked about that drones were being used to supply medicines to the far-flung areas in state of Meghalaya, and today we see that they are also being used to transport drugs. So talking about the Belagavi district, it is a site of dispute between the states of Maharashtra and Karnataka, and let's see what is going to be the future of this region. Talking about the Visakhapatnam port, it is located in the state of Kerala, and I've repeated this news a lot of times. So basically, the fishermen and the coast dwellers, the people living around the coast, they're agitating against the development of this Visakhapatnam port. And obviously, because they'll have to be shifted to different regions, their livelihoods would be destroyed. They'll have to start from the scratch. So basically they have raised seven demands, so we'll be looking at those seven demands also. So talking about the impact that COVID-19 had on our mental health, so that point in that aspect is being highlighted by this article. So it is talking about that COVID-19 pandemic has definitely led to increase in the psychological stress, depression, and loss of life satisfaction. And also, when people they lost their family members, it has led to increase in the suicidal tendencies as well. So we need to focus more upon mental health, although the focus has increased, but it needs to go in a dedicated direction in a planned manner. And when we talk about the psychiatric treatment, India remains woefully inadequate. So the psychiatric treatment facilities, especially when we talk about the rural areas, it's almost, we can say, present at minute level, or almost it is absent in rural areas. So even if the people who have access to qualified psychologists, psychiatrists, they have access to appropriate medicines, and but still the problem of stigmatization that is attached to the mental health problem is there. And this is specifically when we talk about the rich class, the richer class. So even there we see that a certain stigma is attached with a person who is suffering from a mental health or a mental problem. So we need to overcome over this thing, and we need to destigmatize this thing, because it's absolutely normal when a person is going through a depression, and he should rather be, he should need that positivity. Instead, what we are doing, or what the society does, is that we further push that person into negativity, into depression, and definitely that impacts his health. So we should change our perspective that we have towards mental health. So even people, they are, they do not they don't feel so much freedom when it comes to sharing their problem, their mental state, with even their family members. So that is the thing. And obviously, as I just said, that these services, although they might be available in the urban areas, but they are hardly accessible when it comes to the rural villages. So just think about the people who are suffering, who are not even aware about that there are certain diseases which are related to mental health, and we have psychiatrists for dealing with such situations. So they are not even aware about such things when it comes to rural areas. So the awareness needs to be increased. The access to such healthcare services needs to be increased when it comes to rural areas, and people needs to be they need to be made more educated about their mental health. Talking about the climate change, so the article is talking about the shortcomings, the problems that COP27 witnessed and that it suffered from. So there are three problems, and when basically it is specifying more when it comes to the negotiating process. So the first problem that includes is that the citizens in the developed countries, they're not even aware that two-thirds of their national emissions of carbon dioxide, it comes from their diet, transport, basically the lifestyle that they practice. So they are only responsible for even two-thirds of the carbon dioxide emissions. This is basically the absence of knowledge, absence of awareness when it comes to the people, the citizens of developed countries, and this is not highlighted when it comes to the negotiations that are, that happens in such types of summits and meetings. The second challenge or second problem is the process ignores that the global well-being will also follow urbanization of the developing countries' population, requiring fossil fuels for infrastructure and energy to achieve comparable levels. So there are a lot of there are many developing countries who still are in the process of achieving the tag of developed countries, so they are still undergoing urbanization, which would require raw materials in the form of more, basically more natural resources, that is, and this process is going to lead to more carbon emissions, more emissions of the greenhouse gases. So you cannot stop those developing countries, because there are certain obviously developed countries who've already achieved, who have done a lot of carbon dioxide emissions, and now they cannot stop the developing countries just because of the climate change is happening, because the developing countries are not at fault. It is because of the developed world that the situation is such. And the third problem is the need for vast quantities of cement and steel in the developing countries for infrastructure, because obviously they'll be needing these two raw material when it comes to more development, more development in specifically in the infrastructure sector, and this is not being considered when it comes to the climate negotiations, specifically at COP27 and likewise. Now, talking about the climate injustice that flows from the negotiations and so the climate injustices, firstly, it includes that the process that has been adopted, the structure of the international law in a manner that rejected the historical responsibility. So again, we're not identifying that developed world is equally at fault or it is more at fault when it comes to their contribution to carbon emissions. And the developed world, they shift the burden to China and India. So that is one injustice with the developing countries, with the developing world. The second injustice is in the sense that the agenda was set around the globalized material flows, which described as global warming and not wasteful use of energy. So they are not basically identifying the major root cause of the problem, and they are focusing more on the consequence. That is global warming. And the third injustice is in the sense that the public finance is used as a means to secure a political objective and not to solve the problem itself. And as we know that $100 billion was promised at the Paris Climate Agreement, but the promise remains unfulfilled. And at COP27, the major development was the formation of loss and damage fund. Let's see, however, it has not materialized. So yeah, let's see what how things are going to unfold in future. And the fourth injustice is in the sense that the longer term trend has been ignored. The when we talk about the differentiated and the common responsibility, so we need to take the longer trend, the past trend, the history. Definitely, that has to be a part of the climate negotiations when we talk about setting the future targets and future goals. So India has it has been focusing upon life, which stands for lifestyle for environment. So our lifestyle needs to be in sync with, or it needs to be at peace with the environment. So environment should not be disrupted under the garb of fulfilling our commercial, our materialistic goals in life. So that is one thing. Then there is no uniformity in parole and furlough rules. So the Prisons Act 1894 and the Prisoners Act 1900, they did not contain any specific provision pertaining to parole or furlough. So Section 59 of the Prisons Act, it however, it empowers the states to make the rules on it when it comes to shortening of the sentences and for rewards for good conduct of the prisoners. And since prisons and reformatories they fall in the state list of the seventh schedule of the Constitution, so states are well within their reach to legislate on issues which are related to prisons. So prisons is a subject which falls under the list two, that is the state list of the seventh schedule. And there are so obviously every state would be having different laws when it comes to the parole and the furlough. So that is basically this article is saying that we need to have a uniform law and which is going to be applicable at pan India level. So despite the fact that the temporary release it cannot be availed of as a matter of right. So right to parole that there is no such right that a prisoner has the right to parole, but without any common legal framework in place to guide the states and check their misuse, arbitrariness that is likely to creep in and endangering the entire criminal justice system. So, what happens right now, or what is happening right now, is that there are several states, different states having different rules and regulations when it comes to parole and the prisoners. They like every prisoner is not given a parole. So there is basically discrimination when it comes to giving parole to the prisoners. So that's why this article is emphasizing on having a common legal framework so as to check the misuse of the powers that has been given to the states when it comes to the parole and yeah, so this thing is there. And With prisons in the state list, this task is not feasible unless at least half of the states they come together to request the central government to legislate a common law. So for this, for forming such a common law at national level, half of the states they need to agree, and only then such a law can come into force. Obviously, the entire process has to be followed, but with the support, this can only happen with the support of half of these states. Moving ahead. Okay, so funds from the United Nations organizations to be excluded from FCRA, that is Foreign Contributions Regulation Act. So find out more about what are the features, and the foreign contributions, they are regulated by the Union Home Ministry. So this can be asked in prelims. And the Indian organizations which receive the foreign funds, they should mandatorily be registered under this act. And there are a lot many provisions, so you need to find out more about them. They become important from the perspective of prelims. So talking about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic when it comes to the labor class. So basically two reports have been released by the International Labour Organization, and the first one is titled as the Global Wage Report 2022. So it is focusing on twin crises, the twin challenges or the twin factors which is responsible for the current position. The first one is inflation, and the second one is the economic slowdown, which is hampering the interest of the labor class. And it has been witnessed that there has been striking fall in the real monthly wages around the globe. So real wages and the nominal or the money wages are different. In real wages, we take into account inflation. So basically, real wages, they show the real purchasing power of a labor, and nominal wages, they are like not having the inflation into account. So that is the difference between real and the nominal wages. And the second report is about the Asia Pacific Employment and Social Outlook 2022. So both the reports, they are released by ILO, and talking about the whether inequality is rising. So what has been the trend because of the COVID-19 pandemic? So the observation is that at the Asia Pacific level, only the jobs in high skill occupations saw a recovery from the COVID-19 crisis. So the high skilled jobs, they have revived. However, when we talk about the low to medium skill workers, they have not seen any substantial gain. So that is one thing. So we see that the impact or the people belonging to low to medium skill category, the position or their situation has not been recovered, and the impact remains there. So what are the remedies that has been suggested by ILO to tackle with this situation? So it suggests a set of policy options and responses to the cost of living crisis. So it becomes the keyword, the cost of living crisis. So it says that we need to have a multilateral approach that is going to be the key to solving the crisis. We need to strengthen the labor market institutions and wage policies, and there needs to be a creation of decent formal wage employment, which is the need of the hour. Then also government needs to focus more upon the gender pay gap that exists between male and female. And definitely, there is an urgent need to address the negative effects of climate change, increasing inequalities, the poverty, discrimination, violence, exclusion by millions of people. When we talk about there is lack of availability of vaccines, we need to ensure proper and adequate sanitation services are available till the last mile. There are essential healthcare services for all. So all these things, they revolve around ensuring a decent living wage when it comes to the labor class. So this is the thing here. So we've been talking about the Wisdom Port project and the protests that are going on for the past 4 months. So basically, the port work, it has aggravated the coastal erosion, so that is the main concern along the coast of the Tiruvananthapuram, which is in the state of Kerala. There are seven demands that has been raised by the fisher folk. So the first one is that they are calling for a scientific study to assess the impact of the port work on the shoreline. Second is that obviously people would have to be shifted to relief camps, their homes were destroyed. So a proper rehabilitation has to be ensured. They have to be assured a minimum wage, and they are demanding a comprehensive rehabilitation package. So that is their demands. So you can think that if you were posted as a district magistrate there, how would you deal with this situation? So what are the steps that you'll be taking to ensure peace in the region? Talking about B.R. Ambedkar, sir. So the full name is Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar. His father's name was Ramji Malaji Ambedkar. So a small important fact which you should be knowing is that he he fought a lot of challenges when it comes to gaining the education. So he was granted a scholarship by the Maharaja of Baroda, and he joined the Columbia University in New York in July 1913. And he had to, however, come back in 1917 because his scholarship ended. So basically, it is giving a lot of details according to me, which are not so useful. So I just found these two to three facts important, which you should be knowing. Let's move ahead. So Sri Lanka seeks India's help to boost the dairy output. So you should be knowing about the details of the dairy sector in India, its performance over the important personalities related to the dairy sector, such as Varghese Kurian. He's also known as the uh, the National Milkman of India. And talking about the body, so you should be knowing about the National Dairy Development Board and what is the AMUL model, how is it working, what are the basic principles on which it is working, and it has been such a huge success. So basically, the success that has been witnessed in India's dairy sector, India is one of the world's largest milk producer. And yeah, so Sri Lanka is asking for India's support to develop its own dairy output and increase the dairy output. So PMI signals a beat in the services sector and overseas orders post revival. So we are seeing increase in the services sector growth and increase in the orders. So PMI, it stands for Purchasing Managers Index. So basically it is telling that the purchasing managers, which are there in different factories and firms, they place orders for purchasing the inputs, and which is a kind of an indicator to know about the growth rate of the economic activity, if the demand or the orders are increasing when it comes to buying the inputs, it shows that we are moving positively ahead. So we see that the input costs, they have increased at the second fastest rate since July. Besides, there is an increase in the transportation cost, obviously, because the crude oil prices has been increasing. Firms, they mentioned higher prices for energy, food, plastic, and electrical products. So things, as we know, they are moving ahead in a mixed way. We do not have a clear signal when it comes to what is going to be the future of economic activity. There are predictions that the growth in the year 2023 is not going to be so good, and definitely, given the global slowdown, things are moving at a slower pace. And I think this is it from the Hindu. Now let's take up the Financial Express. So in Financial Express, the first thing is we'll be looking at the gold smuggling. So the instances of both gold smuggling and the drug trafficking, it has increased. And we just talked about the situation in the state of Punjab also. And we see that the quantum of gold smuggling, it went up during the period in which the economic activities they were gradually unlocked after the COVID-19 and smuggling in India report 2021. It refers to the high number of seizures by the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. So you should be knowing more about the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, the ministry under which it falls, and what are its powers and different roles. So, our finance minister has also noted that there seemed to be some linkage between very high import of gold and smuggling. So, this is one, you can say, a trend which has been witnessed. And the report also noted that the economic devastation and the loss of employment due to COVID-19 pandemic, it has also led many migrants who are now getting involved in such smuggling cases. So, this report, it is published by the report is Smuggling in India report published by the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. This can definitely be asked in prelims. So even our Prime Minister is stressing on the use of latest technology in tracking the economic offenders. And we also have an economic offenders law, and you should be knowing about the Drugs and the Psychotropic Substances Act also. So we need a coordinated international effort when it comes to intelligence, investigation, and indictment of fugitive economic offenders and organized crime syndicates. And when the problem is global, obviously the solution has to be global too. So that is what our Prime Minister has to say on this issue. Talking about the exports of basmati rice and processed food, we are witnessing an upsurge, and which is definitely a good news. So when we look at this bar diagram, you'll be seeing that what is the percentage change when it comes to the export of basmati rice. So they have increased by 37% when it comes to their value, and processed food exports have increased by 26%. And also, when we talk about the processed fruits and vegetables, even their exports have increased by 27% when it comes to their value. So, the total exports of both the agricultural and the processed food products, it increased by 19% to $15 billion during the period April to October this year, which were driven by the spike in the shipment of rice, fruits, vegetables, livestock, and dairy product. So we also saw that the livestock and the dairy sector is also witnessing an increase in its growth. Also, you should be knowing more about the Agricultural and the Processed Food Products Export Authority, and also other key agricultural products which are exported from our country includes the marine products, spices, tea, coffee, and tobacco. So I'll repeat the key agricultural export products from our country includes the marine products, spices, tea, coffee, and tobacco. Also, we are focusing more upon promotion of the exports of the Indian millets. So we are celebrating the year 2023 as the International Year for Millets. So we are every day seeing certain new development when it comes to millets, and they are definitely more nutritious when it comes to rice and wheat. So millets are also seen more as a poor man's food. So even this stigma needs to be done away with. Oh, okay. So this article is talking about regulating the online gaming industry. So the gaming sector, it is increasing, it is growing at an compound annual growth rate of 38%, and the industry it is poised to reach approximately $5 billion by 2025. So it is growing at an exponential rate. However, the industry in India, it suffers from the inherent perception challenges, which is like under the garb of online gaming, we are promoting online gambling, which is illegal. So the games of skills, which includes usage of your skills, such as fantasy, chess, rummy, poker. So these are illegal, and even the constitution protects such games which are based on your usage of your skills. And the games of chance, which is like teen patti or which includes gambling, they are illegal. So online gambling is an illegal activity, and You should be knowing that the games of skill, they are protected under the constitution, so this can come in PT, so you should be clear with this. When we talk about the game of skills, they are protected under article 19 clause 1 subclause G, so you should also be knowing about the article also. So we need a well-defined regulatory structure which will be encompassing the responsible gaming policies, which is going to encourage appropriate gaming behavior. So we need a regulatory structure which is promoting appropriate gaming behavior. Also, it will also provide the required impetus to the overall gaming sector, like it will promote more and more participation by the entrepreneur ambitions and the entrepreneurs class, propelling more unicorns, bringing in more startups when it comes to the gaming industry, boosting investors' confidence, enabling more and more job creation, generating revenue for the government, also helping in reducing the fiscal deficit. So these can be the benefits once we come up with a properly defined and balanced regulatory structure when it comes to online gaming industry. And also when we talk about what is the structure of regulation right now, so right now the industry, it has adopted a self-regulatory system, and it is proactively educating users on how to play responsibly and not get misguided and get misused and fall prey to certain illegal participants, which can definitely lead to data theft, and also you'll be witnessing certain financial frauds also. So most gaming operators, they have implemented innovative initiatives such as imposing the KYC norms, SSL level encryption, RNG certification, and other risk flagging mechanisms to promote responsible gaming. Talking about the global level, gaming is a well-regulated industry in many countries which are having proper regulatory system. So even our Prime Minister is emphasizing that we need to focus more upon Made in India and Made for India games, focusing more upon our potential for Create in India and Brand in India. So these are the key terms which should be a part of your answer. Also, right now we have formed the animation, visual effects, gaming, and comics task force, along with the Ministry of Electronics and Technology, to hold consultations with all the stakeholders and come up with a uniform regulatory mechanism. So, a soft touch regulatory framework is definitely going to be bringing more order and safety to player protection and initiatives, and this can obviously boost our Digital India initiative also and improve the country's reputation for ease of doing business. So this article becomes important, and this is it from from the Financial Express and for today. So thank you for joining Ansarkari. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share the video as much as possible. Thank you.